Good morning and welcome to Meet the Experts. My name is Amanda Pearson and I'm a patient and family specialist in the Patient Library and Welcome Center. We present these sessions each Tuesday and Wednesday at 10 a.m. And today's topic is on getting ready for back to school, planning and support for cancer patients and caregivers. Before we get started, we have a quick disclaimer. The content in this presentation is not intended to be medical advice, and the viewer should consult their physician should they have any questions. Viewers should not rely on information contained in this presentation for immediate or urgent medical needs. And if you think you might be having a medical emergency, call your physician, go to the nearest emergency department, or call 911 immediately. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking care because of information contained in this presentation. Additionally, today's session is being recorded. We have turned off cameras and muted all microphones to better protect your privacy. If you do have any questions, please use the Q&A tab or type your question to our expert in the chat. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Corey Hatfield, Outpatient Social Work Supervisor here at Moffitt. Corey is also the administrator that supports the Families First program here at Moffitt as well. So with that, welcome, Corey.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you for facilitating Meet the Experts. I love this program and this information that's provided to patients, and thank you for inviting me today. So, as Amanda said, we're going to talk about getting ready for back to school and some of the special considerations patients with a diagnosis of cancer who have young children might take into consideration during this time of year. So, back to school is what we're going to be talking about. And I know that that brings up a variety of emotions, both stressful emotions as well as excitement. For parents, it might be more stress than excitement this time of year. And that's for a variety of reasons. There's a lot of transition that happens and going back to school, and transitions naturally come with their own anxieties and stressors, even positive ones. And so, specifically with back to school, you've got school orientations that you're navigating, new schedules that can oftentimes look very different from your schedules in the summer, whether that be needing to get up earlier to go back to school or navigating pickups and drop offs, things like that for kiddos, as well as after school activities that might be new this time of year. So you've got all that going on. You've got back to school orientations to meet new teachers and figure out potentially new schools. And then there's always the laundry list of shopping supplies that we get every year from our teachers that cost additional funds, as well as different additional navigation and getting to different department stores and taking time out of our days for that. So there's a lot that goes into back to school time. We also know that going through a cancer diagnosis and treatment is a very stressful time. There's a lot of unknowns and lack of control that goes along with a cancer diagnosis, whether that be uncertainties for the future, treatment schedules, side effects that are being experiences, and just a lot of vulnerabilities there. And we know a cancer diagnosis doesn't happen in a vacuum. So when we're going through a stressful time with cancer, as well as a stressful time with school, it can be hard to navigate through that. And so we're going to talk about some different tips and tricks in navigating this new time of the year. And a big component of that is going to be communication. So we're going to talk about ways that we can communicate with our loved ones, with our children, with the school, in order to navigate this time, to support you all the best that you can, as well as to support your kiddos through this time as well. So first, we're going to talk about communication with our children. So routines are a big thing for kids. As they're growing and learning and experiencing this new world, figuring out human behavior and communication, as well as navigating things like cause and effect. Their developing little minds are taking on a lot. The world can be overwhelming for us. It can certainly be overwhelming for our kiddos as well. And so routines are one of those things that can really be important to kids. It can be kind of a grounding touchstone for them as they are going through life, that kind of constant when there are so many new things that they're experiencing and learning. And so with that, it's helpful to try to keep their routines as much as possible when we're going through a cancer diagnosis or when we're going through a new school year. But we know that as hard as we're going to try to keep those routines as stable as possible, that cancer and cancer treatment can get in the way. And so we want to make sure that we are communicating with our children about your cancer diagnosis, about your treatment plan, so that they have some context and some understanding as to the changes that they're going to see and experience as you go through your cancer diagnosis. And we can get into lots of other reasons, but we're going to talk about communication specifically as it relates to changes with back to school time. And so because of that routine piece, it's going to be helpful to talk about, again, the difference between cancer and other illnesses, why you may be experiencing side effects that you're experiencing. And those side effects are going to be related to fatigue, maybe chemo brain, those types of things that are going to impact our regular interaction with kids, as well as treatment plans, doctor's appointments, infusion times. Those things are also going to impact routines. So when we're able to give them the context, they can have an understanding of why these changes are happening and not misassociate them with maybe something they've done or other things that are going on within their lives or at home. And so when we aren't going to be able to keep those routines up for whatever reason, we want to be able to communicate with our children about that as well. So side effects that we might or that patients might experience include chemo brain fatigue. Maybe that's going to impact your ability to help with homework as much as you typically do during the school year. Being able to take that time at the end of the day might be a challenge for you to concentrate and to navigate that piece. And so somebody else might need to help with that, whether it be another parent or caregiver or another family member coming over to help with those things, explaining to your little one why that's happening and who's going to be helping so that they can anticipate those changes is very helpful. Again, patients, doctor's appointments and infusion appointments may impact logistically routines such as pick up and drop off at school or pick up and drop off at different extracurricular activities, sports or clubs, those types of things that our kiddos might be participating in. And so navigating and discussing with them when there are changes or could potentially be changes in those, whether it be a neighbor picking them up or dropping them off, to expect that change and what days when that's going to happen. And so communicating that up front so they can anticipate those disruptions to what they're used to. Maybe even creating a calendar and putting it on the calendar on which days maybe grandma and grandpa are going to be picking them up and dropping them off for a visual representation of what those changes will look like and feel like. Because of all of this change, as we know, that lack of control can be hard for us as adults, and it can be hard for kiddos as well. And so being able to give them choices when we're able to, whether that be the choice of if you have the luxury of having more than one person involved, who is their preference in coming to pick them up or drop them off. If they are involved in maybe multiple extracurricular activities, but because of either time or finances, you're not able to keep up on multiple activities. And so maybe they have to pick one, allowing them the choice of being involved in which activity they're participating in can give them a sense of control. They can also feel a sense of control and a sense of ownership or being hopeful if we let them help around the house as well, maybe bringing a glass of water, something that's age appropriate, where they can feel somewhat involved in patient care as well. It can be a good time too to incorporate some additional coping. This is a stressful time, and as much as we want to protect our kiddos from the scary parts of the life and the world, cancer is one of those things we would love to protect them from. but unfortunately it is something that's impacting your family right now. And so being able to model for them how to cope and get through challenging times by incorporating that into your routines can give them the skills to get through this challenge, but also give them the skills to get through future challenges that they might experience as well. And so maybe you go for a walk in the morning or at the end of the day to help relieve stress. Maybe you start doing breathing exercises together in the morning or in the evening to incorporate some of that learning and to do those things together as a family, again, to help support your own resilience as well as their resilience. So lots of opportunities to communicate both about changes as well as about ways that you all can cope through this time as a family. Communication with support systems is also very important. Throughout my years in working with families, I hear so often from others in the support system, whether it be other family members or friends that are hoping to support their loved one who's going through a cancer diagnosis. They oftentimes reflect on challenges and knowing what to say or what to do to help, and that kind of tug of war of not being too intrusive with support or offerings, but not wanting to feel like they've backed away too far and not knowing how to navigate that. So oftentimes your support systems, whether it be family, friends, neighbors, colleagues, if you're part of a religious community, those individuals oftentimes want to help and to support, but don't quite know how. And on the opposite end, working with patients and families, it's hard for the patient to ask for support as well. I can't count how many times I've had a patient reflect on worries about feeling like a burden or putting too much on others who also have things going on. And so it can be really, really challenging for patients to ask their loved ones for support. But it can be really important to do so, both for them to be able to provide some sort of support to you, but also for ourselves. Ultimately, we are pack animals and we seek connection. And so incorporating our support systems into this journey can be, such a valuable skill and need. And so I encourage you to kind of reframe what asking for support means. I think people oftentimes think about asking for support means that they are weak in some way, or they can't do everything by their own or on their own. And so that somehow, shows that they're incapable or unable to care for themselves or their children. But really, asking for support because it's so challenging, that vulnerability ultimately takes a lot of strength to ask for help and to show others our vulnerability and where we're struggling and might need some additional support. I think too, as parents, we want to do everything that we can to help our children. So if we reframe this in terms of not asking for support for us, but asking for support for our children, we can feel like we're just doing everything we can as a caregiver to support our family, even those hard things like asking others for help. So if we reframe the way we're looking at that request, it really is a strength to help us get through one of the most challenging times for our lives. And being direct in what kind of help might be beneficial can be helpful for others as well. How often have you maybe heard, if you need anything, just let me know. And this is your opportunity to be very specific on what's needed, because oftentimes they're not going to know what's going to be helpful for you. And so we'll talk about just some ideas on things that others can do to help alleviate some stress or take the load off during this time. And one of those things is just being an emergency contact, somebody who, if infusion or a doctor's appointment is running late, is able to go pick up the kids. An emergency contact of some time for your kiddos, if that's ever needed, can be a relief to know that they're in good hands if something unexpected is happening with you at an appointment or an infusion or an unexpected hospitalization occurs. And then an emergency contact for yourself as a patient as well, so that the medical team knows who to reach out to to help navigate any unexpected emergencies that might come up with your care. So that's one great way our support system can be involved. Transportation is another. You can't be in two places at once. Many families only have one vehicle. That vehicle can't be in two places at once. And so, if our support systems can help with setting up maybe a carpool for school or extracurricular activities, or individual transportation for kids for pickup and drop off to either school or extracurricular activities, or maybe that transportation isn't needed for kids because we do have family or maybe a partner who's able to bring the kids to and from those events. But then that leaves a challenge for the patient to get back and forth to doctor's appointments or treatments. Maybe that transportation is needed to help the patient get to doctor's appointments, and kind of thinking outside the box on ways that we can use that support both for the patient as well as the kiddos, so that both needs are being met. Meals is another big way that our support system can help, especially during back to school time. We know after school can be such a busy time, homework, getting dinner ready, getting kiddos wound down for the night, and going through treatment. That fatigue can really kick in, especially at the end of the day when we've used so much energy during the day for our different needs. And so if somebody can set up a meal train or drop off a meal here and there, that is one less thing that you need to do or worry about at the end of the day. So that can help lighten the load in a very easy way, in a way that others are oftentimes very open to supporting others. Babysitting is another help, whether that be to take time for yourself and listen to your body and relax and recover, or have some of your own time to cope as a patient going through this, modeling again your ability to care for yourself in order to care for others, and giving your kiddos that permission to take care of themselves now and in the future, building that resilience. There are also concrete tasks that people might feel comfortable helping out with, whether that be yard work again. So that's one less thing that you have to worry about, taking care of the household, whether it be yard work, coming over to do dishes or help clean or do laundry, those types of things. One extra thing off your plate that needs to be taken care of during a busy week. Completing applications for you. So this is something that our support systems that aren't local, that live a distance away, that wish that they could help. That's one way that they can help, whether that be applications for financial assistance. Maybe it's reaching out to the insurance company to ask questions about billing issues, those types of things where you don't necessarily need to be in person to provide support. You just need a little bit of time on your hands to be able to help fill out some of those things or make some phone calls. And then regular check-ins can be so beneficial. If you feel like you're managing things now, symptoms oftentimes tend to be cumulative. And so you might be feeling okay now, but maybe in a few months from now or a few weeks from now, you might not be up to some of these tasks. And so if they're checking in regularly to make sure that you're still doing well, if there's anything else that is needed, those might be opportunities for you to feel welcome and asking additional support in the future. Check-ins with the kiddos can be helpful as well. I know patients do everything they can to support their kids and talk about their diagnosis and give them opportunities to process their feelings and what they're experiencing. But sometimes our kids feel more comfortable communicating with others in our support system, whether that be a grandparent that they're close with, that they tend to open up with, or an aunt or an uncle or a neighbor or somebody that they have a close relationship with. If you can set up some check-ins for your kids too, that will give just an additional layer of support, where they have somebody, checking in on them. They know that they've got that support system there and have opportunities to communicate or process what they're going through with somebody else in your life. And then finally, there's going to be communication with the school. Your kids spend a great deal of time at school, right? They're there most of the day and sometimes spend more time with school than they do with us. And so being able to set up some supports for that big chunk of time can be one way that you can support your kids. And then you can also have a little bit of control over the message or the information that's happening at school, right? When we're communicating with the school and we're speaking to them about what's going on, we can elicit that support and have a little bit more say than if we're not communicating with them. And so schools can be a great resource, an extra set of eyes and ears to help us understand, how your children are coping. And so you'll want to decide who at school is important to have this information, whether it be a teacher, a school social worker, coaches, being able to give them a general understanding of your diagnosis and what's going on. They don't necessarily need to know the details. I know a lot of patients are private with that information, but at least giving them some idea in what your child knows so that they can have some anticipation of what might come up for your child can be very helpful. So even if that's as basic as that you're going through a cancer diagnosis and you're, going through treatment, that will help the school have some understanding and some context to some of the things that they might see. You might want to have a point of contact at the school as well. So you might want multiple people to know what's going on, depending on who all is involved in the care of your little ones. But you might want to have one point of contact for communicating any information or updates so that they can disseminate to the others that need to know. You might also want to have a point of contact for your kid to speak to as well, somebody that they trust, whether it be a social worker, a teacher, or a coach, someone along those lines. But this additional communication will help the school understand any changes and pick up or drop off routines that they might see. If there's now another family member there to pick up the kids, they will know that it's okay for your children to go with them, but they might have a different sense of what's going on and be able to support and understand those changes in a different way. They can assist with recognizing maybe changes in your child's demeanor or behavior if they are starting to, act out or show emotion or things that you might want to know about. They can recognize those changes, know where they're coming from, and then also help to communicate that back to you. This information can also help them identify any potential triggers related to curriculum or classroom discussion, things that might bring up emotions for your child that if they didn't know about your cancer diagnosis and treatment, they might not understand why your child is having the reaction that they do. So they might be able to pay closer attention to supporting your child through that, or give your child a warning or give you a warning that some of that curriculum or topics might be coming up. You can also work on a plan for your child for that support, whether that be, again, that point of contact for your child to seek out support as needed, or if your child is having a particularly challenging day or feeling very emotional, you might be able to set up a little bit of a plan with the teacher where your child can give them a signal if they need to maybe step away to cry or to gather themselves in some way because they're feeling emotional, or maybe they have a signal that shows the teacher that they are paying attention, they're engaged, but maybe that's a challenging topic, or they're feeling emotional and open communication of being called on in front of their peers might be a challenge for them, that day or that, next hour or period or topic. They can signal to the teacher that, I'm here, but please don't call on me right now. And again, that connection with the school counselor or coaches. Our schools also have resources that your oncology social workers might not be aware of, you might not be aware of. And so communicating with your schools about what resources they might have access to or knowledge about can be very helpful. That might be, now that you're going through treatments, you might need some additional options for before and after school care that you didn't have to access before. So they might be able to give you an idea of some of the options in the community that you weren't aware of before. Again, cancer can be very overwhelming financially, and so can back to school with those long lists of school supplies. And so there are oftentimes support in the community with different churches or nonprofit organizations where you might have access to free school supplies or free back to school haircuts and things like that. And your school social workers may be aware of what some of those resources are. And so the schools can be a support in a variety of ways, both in supporting your child, supporting you, and getting resources available to you as well. And raising a child, you need a village. We talked about some of that village at Families First. Moffitt is a part of that village as well. So our Families First program is here to support you during this time. As a patient of Moffitt, you have access to your social workers and clinics, and they're there to be a sounding board and to talk through if you're having any challenges communicating with your child, with the school, processing what this experience has been like, providing support to you as well, so that you are processing your experience and are coping well through this, so that you have the energy and ability to help your children cope through your journey. We also have in-person events throughout the year. Our last event was actually this past Saturday, and that's an opportunity for you as well as your children to connect with other families who are going through a similar experience. It can be so helpful for kids to see that they're not the only ones that are going through this challenge or these challenges. It can be helpful for you as parents to see that you're not the only ones going through these challenges. And so those in-person events provide opportunities for families to connect to one another, for parents to connect to one another, and then for kiddos to connect with one another. The kids' activities are all therapeutically based, whether that be creating opportunities to learn about different coping skills or talk about different coping skills, learning different coping skills. The little kids in this last event learned the basics of breathing exercises and made some fun crafts to assist in those breathing exercises at home when they return home. Our Families First program is also collaborating with Moffitt's Patient and Family Library, and there are books that families can check out if they are interested. So there's books for parents, books for teenagers, books for little ones, all to help with communicating with your child about your cancer diagnosis and supporting them through this journey. I wouldn't be a social worker if I didn't bring resources. And so here are some resources that might be helpful. So first is the phone number to our social work department. They can get you connected to your individual social worker if you're wanting to communicate with them about what's going on with your cancer journey, and to talk through some of those strategies and communicating with your support system or communicating with your children. You can also get connected to our Families First program that way, in order to get on our mailing list to learn more about upcoming events and activities. Triage Cancer is a wonderful organization. They have some resources on their website. The links are there. One is to a webinar, again, on this transition of going back to school. They also have a wonderful checklist that goes through some of the practical support resources that can be helpful for parents going through cancer diagnosis. So that includes different apps that set up meal trains or carpool options, that type of thing. So there's some real good practical tools on that checklist there. Bright Spot Network is a wonderful organization that's specific for supporting families going through a cancer diagnosis, and they have multiple resources on that link, webinars, articles, things like that, on communicating with schools when a parent has a cancer diagnosis, as well as supporting your children when going back to school when a parent has a cancer diagnosis. Cancer Care has a publication as well on ways that schools can support families affected by cancer. And then United Way is a wonderful organization as well. Their 211 that you can dial on your phone can get you connected to multiple resources. They have a whole resource database so you can communicate with them about what your needs are. I know many clients that I've worked with in the past have used 211 to find out where they can locate in their community those different resources that provide free back to school backpacks and back to school supplies and that type of thing. So that more practical support you can find at that 211 number.
Thank you for viewing this session. We offer live Meet the Expert sessions through Zoom. To see a full list of upcoming sessions, please visit moffitt.org/meet the experts or call 813-745-1690.